Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 90. As always, I'm going to start us off with a tune. Bum, 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 bum. And that was the Battle of Alamo, a British military tune. Okay, how are we going tonight, gents? Mitch, how are you going?
Same old, just usual Ukrainian news and what is it? That topic of whether leaving the UK is a good idea, and as well as Italian election looking good so far from what I've
Well,
heard.
the Italian election is going to be our main topic this evening. Well, the Italian election in the EU. And we will be doing a stream over the next week or two about the pros and cons of moving away from UK. John, how are you going, mate?
Yeah, going all right. Still feeling a bit rough. But,
I hope you feel better soon.
paying you back for yesterday.
Yeah, thanks very much, mate. That's all. You're always welcome on the stream. And Richard, we don't get you as much as I would like you on here. How are you going, mate?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for asking.
You're always welcome, mate. You're always welcome. I see you've now got a Mosley avatar.
Well, I thought it was kind of fitting because we're going to be talking about the Italian erection. So
Yeah, no worries. But before we get on to that, as always, I'm going to go around my guests and ask if they have a first subject they'd like to bring up and discuss. Mitch, did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up to discuss before we get on to other things?
It's not a subject I've looked up that much. But it's like you got the whole the budget, where it's basically just trickle down economics, because apparently the likes of Jeff Bezos succeeding means we're all going to get money from him or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Trickle down economics has never been proposed by anyone other than people suggesting that that's what's being proposed.
Yeah, I don't think it works very well anyway.
Well, it's not a thing.
Yeah, well, that goes right back to the Reagan era, doesn't it?
It's just not a thing. It was never proposed. The people proposing it never referred to it as trickle-down economics. It's just what socialists call cutting taxes.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah,
the principle is that by cutting taxes, you can potentially increase the tax intake.
Yeah,
it's called the Laffer curve. Basically, the less beneficial you make it to avoid taxes, the higher the tax take there potentially is. There's a point, obviously, if taxation is zero, you collect no tax at all. But the principle is that there is a point at which there is an optimum tax percentage that generates maximum tax revenues, and they believe that taxation being lower than it currently is will do that. And by doing that, they will then have higher public funds from which to spend. That's the principle. It's not trickle down. The term trickle down economics is just socialism claiming that that's what it's intended to do. It's not intended to do that at all. It's intended to leave more money in the pockets of the people who earn it.
Yeah, no, I get that. Whether it makes, to me, this is all tinkering around the edges while everything's burning. But
Well, 1% cut isn't going to change anyone's life anytime soon.
No, exactly. I pretty much agree with that. I know you're into economics, Richard. What's your view on the budget, if you have one?
That's bullshit, mate.
It's pretty much what I think.
To me, it's like sort of banana republic economics. Let's underwrite unlimited energy usage and cap prices and cut taxes at the same time. It's just, what can you expect from the Tories at this point?
Well, I mean, the energy caps are simply saving up debt. I mean, I don't know what the hell else they could do, but they're just debt for people in the next couple of years' time,
Well, yeah, I mean, they could drill for more gas, maybe. I mean, maybe it's not too much to ask for.
Well, they are saying that they're going to do fracking and what have you now, so we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it, but they're certainly saying that some of this stuff is now going to happen, but I think it's too little, too late, to be honest. But we'll see. Lumbar in the chat says that the tax cut amounts to £376 a year for someone on 50k.
That's incorrect.
Is it? Okay, cool.
Well, tax and national insurance amounts to around about £800 or £900 a year for someone on 500k. So, yes, right. It's still tinkering around the edges, but it's certainly not that low.
Okay, so it's a bit higher than Lumbar says. It's sort of but it's still less. It's still less than £1,000, which is not really going to change anything, in my opinion. But maybe I'm wrong. I doubt it.
It's £1,000 that doesn't belong to the government. So
yeah, look, I think lower taxes are better than higher taxes. I'm just not sure how that's going to really change the complete shit show, which is the British economy at the moment. So
whose economy are you basing it against?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, all of the European economies are pretty much in the shit
it's
state
not just
at
the
moment.
European. The many of the bigger currencies this week took a sharp nosedive against the dollar.
Yep. Yeah, and the American economy is not actually doing very well, but if you're an ordinary American middle class or working class bloke, that is, not doing all that great at all. American inflation's pretty high, etc. But yeah, any final thoughts on the budget?
Well, it seems like they're going to be importing people to pay for it. That seems
Yeah,
to be
that was going to be my first subject, John. But they've said increases in immigration because line go up.
You couldn't write it.
I mean, surprisingly enough, the non-Anglo-Celtic cabinet ministers are increasing immigration. What a surprise!
Well, it doesn't matter whether they're non-Anglo-Celtic or not. They're still increasing immigration.
Well, yeah,
Doesn't
but
matter.
I thought this was going to happen, but there we go. And as you said to me, I was merely saying that water is wet. Well, sure, but I still knew it was going to happen. Okay, John, did you have the first subject you wanted to bring up?
Not really. We're still kind of coming out of this cocoon of the death of the Queen. There's not a whole lot of news going around.
No, it's mostly the stuff that's been going on all year, basically. Did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up, Richard?
No, I just want to get on to Italy.
All right,
Come on.
Well, go on. Go on. There's your chance. Start on Italy.
So it's this is being dubbed in the mainstream media as a likely far right victory, and like the more that I dig into this, it's anything but far right, really. It seems to me.
Well, I mean, what the mainstream media calls far right is bullshit anyway. But okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they position positions that would have been sort of mainstream 15, 20, 25 years ago are now, classified as being far right. But I just think it's kind of interesting because of the dynamics that exist in Europe at the minute. You've got the sort of the economic situation, the sovereign debt crisis that really, the epicenter of which is Italy. And we've got this kind of potential turmoil. We've got this situation where the European Union is threatening to basically sanction Italy in the same way that they're doing with Poland and Hungary.
Yeah.
So it's interesting times. But as I say, the more I look into this, the less I'm impressed with what the Fratelli d'Italia actually is. And it's basically, although I get the feeling that this Meloni girl probably is and was a fascist, but their message has now been really heavily moderated, I just feel like the Italians are actually in a really hard spot because basically Brussels and Frankfurt run the show, and so there's very little that they can do. I just feel like there's going to be a sort of just an interesting dynamic that's going to come out over the next couple of months, because now there seems to be a sort of 3-country coalition that could emerge from this. So you've got Poland, Hungary, and now potentially Italy. And I just wonder whether that can have any impact on the direction of the EU or not.
Well, it's a Franco-German club, isn't it? Really.
Like, I don't know about Poland and Hungary because they've a fallout over Ukraine recently. So I don't know. I don't know if they'll repair the relationship they had because Hungary...
Poland is very pro-Ukraine and Hungary much less so. Is that right?
Yeah, like Hungary, for example, is paying for Russian gas in rubles, whereas Poland has pretty much disowned them for doing so, for saying, look, you're being traitors to our friendship. Like, we are not going to be friends with a country that will pay for Russian gas in rubles. So
this is the thing. The Poles seem to be one of those nations who remember everything and forget nothing.
yeah, it's like
But
the Hungarians have their own reason. Like the Hungarians don't like Ukrainians, so there's no love lost between them and Ukrainians. But they don't really have. They've got historical grievances against Russia because of 1956 and World War II, but they don't really let it guide their policy in the way that the Baltic states and Poland would do.
Yeah, but you think like Poland wouldn't really like Ukraine, given the way Bandera's people treated the Poles. So,
Polish got like
from speaking to Polish people, this is probably another case of the government calling the shots. It's not necessarily what the people really think or care about.
Yeah, I do. I follow a couple of Polish YouTubers, and they're pretty pro-Russian. But as you say, John, that's not the government.
Yeah, it's not just that. I mean, the ruling party, Law and Justice, they'll be Polish nationalist in terms of the international scene. But let's face, like it's for example, they will talk at the like they will defy the Germans and the Russians because World War II mythology and whatnot. But when it comes to the Atlanticist powers, Poland would just be very subservient to the likes of the Americans and the Brits. And in the case of Ukraine, the Polish government wants to do intermarium, like they want to do some sort of anti-Russian alliance in the east, because a lot of Polish nationalists have a divide between intermarium or the sort of more pragmatic sense of we have to ally with whoever we need to make sure Poland doesn't get global homophobia.
On the subject of the EU, though, I think if you're talking about sort of Poland and co, you're barking up the wrong tree if you think they're going to be the next countries to leave. They get far too much out of the arrangement in financial terms.
I'm of the opinion, and I was talking to Mitch about this before we started, that we cannot predict what's going to happen. Like, I don't think anyone would have predicted, say, Mussolini's march on Rome before it happened.
I think they're clearly worried about Italy.
Yeah. Like, there is a lot of feeling amongst ordinary people in Italy that that things are not going well for them.
But then this has been said about Italy and Greece in particular for a number of years, and they keep getting sold out by these people who are supposedly anti-EU leaders.
I wanted to ask Richard. Someone in the chat said Maloney is an Atlanticist. Is that true, Richard? Do you think?
Well, listen. I mean, I'm no expert. I've just read a whole bunch of articles and taken secondhand opinions. But from what I've seen, she is. I mean, she attended a sort of a national conservatism conference in Rome. I mean, I think that says it all, right? I mean, that's like the most milquetoast GOP kind of thing going. And from what I can tell, a lot of overtures have been made towards the EU and NATO and backing Ukraine. So this, the label of being sort of far right to me rings very hollow. And I think
it always does.
Yeah, but the Unheard article that I referenced in the chat, I thought was a pretty good takedown, because everything else that I get recommended from Google News is like Vox or The Guardian.
Fair enough.
So, from what I understand, that comment does hold true. Yeah.
Fair enough. 555 saying, what's happened in Italy? I'm not informed. Can anyone give us a general rundown? Does anyone want to do
that? From what I see, you've got Fratelli d'Italia, Brothers of Italy, led by Giorgia Meloni, who she's Atlanticist. So, for example, she supports giving weapons to Ukraine. She's genuinely very pro-NATO, and she's, from what I've heard, it's essentially she's wanting to rebel against the EU by pursuing closer links with America and Britain. So I don't think she'll be as based as people think. Then you got
so rebelling against absolutely nothing then.
pretty much like exchanging one global homo for another.
See,
It's the same one.
I would not be against this idea if it was a case of Italy wanting to pursue links with Britain. I mean, given Britain got out just about, so that might not be a bad idea.
Okay, but our government literally does mass immigration, trans stuff, and drag queen story. So, what would be the point of a nationalist in a country like Italy or Sweden or whoever allying with us? It's like,
well, we would have to change too. I mean, this is the. I don't think any of us here are greatly enamoured of the current British government or any British government that's going to come out of the Conservative or Labour pies at the moment.
I mean, it's like you get Polish nationalists who are anti-Russia, and you see them on Telegram, and because Boris Johnson was aligning himself with the Poles and Ukrainians quite a lot, you get Polish nationalists who are supposedly meant to be like anti-Western, anti-global homo. They're simping. They were simping for Boris Johnson. Like they were wanting him to stay in power. So
anyone simping for Ukraine is absolutely globo homo. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's my problem with Polish nationalists. Is like of the intermarrying sort. It's like they say they oppose global homo, but let's face it, like their positions lead them to ally with global homo. Like they'll simp for NATO because they hate Russia so much. But then you could easily say to them, okay, by joining NATO, you're allowing your country to become a pawn for American geopolitics.
Listen, I like John Best, what he's saying in the chat. Britain should be working on an anti-EU alliance from within the EU. An anti-EU alliance of people in the EU is what I think he means. Instead, we're just doing Americans' bidding in Europe still. Yes, I agree with that. Then George says Britain would be best trying to do a deal with Hungary, Italy, Greece, and now Sweden, and to work some sort of neutral angle between Russia and the US. Again, I don't disagree with that either.
Yeah, it's like Nigel Farage when he said Orban ought to join the Brexit club. I mean, I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't be lying when I said I wish that would happen when, let's say, Nigel Farage was Prime Minister for hypothetical reasons, and he was just going into like countries like Hungary and Sweden and Poland or whatever, and just like trying to encourage some sort of like and trying to subvert the EU from within. Like that would just be top kick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Britain should be subverting the EU. We shouldn't be supporting it. We should be subverting it.
I think. Yeah. I think you guys kind of underappreciate the level of support that the EU as an institution has across Europe. It's actually remarkably robust. And I think that
amongst who, Richard? Amongst who?
I cited a poll in your chat maybe 2 weeks ago, and it shows that support for the euro across the eurozone is at an all-time high. Now, it's kind of, I think a lot of people find that perplexing, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that it's the EU is going from strength to strength. On the continent, it's a largely well-supported project. I just think that if you come from the UK, it's a bit of a culture shock. But I can tell you, having lived on the continent now for a couple of years, that is, and I've got a lot of European friends that I have IRL, and they don't have the same view of the EU that we do. They have a very different conception of it compared to us.
I don't know. The Italians don't seem to have taken kindly to being threatened by the EU, nor did the Hungarians, for that matter.
No, but that doesn't undermine their. It's strange, right? Because you look at Greece and you look at Italy and Spain, you think, wow, these countries are in a real financial and economic pickle, and yet the EU is still very popular. I think their conception of things is that they just want things fixed, but there is very much this idea of like a European identity on the continent.
Yeah, kind of. I'm not sure how deep it goes, but yeah. Look, there's also like we were talking about this in the Discord before the stream, and pretty obviously the USA has shafted Europe, and in particular Germany and France.
Well,
I can't believe that most Europeans can't see this.
I think America's certainly come out on top, but to my mind, you can't just blame the Americans. I look at it and think to myself, this is a complete strategic blunder from Europe.
Yeah, this is another European problem.
Yeah, we've brought this on ourselves.
Yep.
And
they've shot themselves in the foot on purpose.
Yeah, and to my mind, cutting off Russian gas, energy is the primary component that goes into all industrial production. It is something like $20 billion worth of natural gas produced $2 trillion worth of German GDP output, right? Mm-hmm. It's not in our interests to basically burn bridges with the biggest natural resource supplier in the world that's on our doorstep.
That we're completely connected to. This is why America's not experiencing quite the same problems, because shipping liquefied natural gas is not cheap, and pipeline is the most convenient way to do it, and they're on an entirely different set of pipelines to what we're on.
And America could actually be energy self-sufficient if it wasn't for the watermelon green bullshit which Biden supports.
Oh, America is the land of abundance. It's the most bountiful and blessed continent on the planet. You've got the Mississippi River system. You've got the Permian gas basin and the oil and gas, and in Canada. I mean, they could be perfectly self-sufficient. Yep. But of course, now Europe's got to buy natural gas that's liquefied at 5 times the price that we'd get from Russia,
and then pay the shipping companies, etc. And also they don't have enough facilities to unload it, etc. Yeah.
And but Duke, where's that natural gas going to come from? That's basically going to come from the US. So the US gets to export
absolutely agree.
liquefied natural gas to Europe at 5x compared to what we get from Russia. I mean, think about these strategic benefits that are accruing to America. For now. I don't think this is going to stick long term, because I think the Europeans sooner rather than later are going to realize they just can't afford to do this. So what do you think? Do you think that they're going to go back and buy Russian natural gas?
Yes, I do actually. In the medium term, that's what I think will happen. Yes. Not in the short term, but in the medium term, yes, I do think that's what's going to happen. And I think, as I was trying to tell people in the Discord before we were streaming, that Europe's basic problem is they are unwilling to pay for their own defense, and therefore are reliant on the Americans. Now, if Europe was to think to themselves, well, we're now paying like 3 or 4 times as much for our energy requirements, it would be cheaper to pay for our own defense, then we can tell the Americans to go get stuffed.
I mean, you had Nord Stream 2 got cancelled because the Americans told the Germans to do so. So
absolutely right. But how were the Americans able to do that? They were able to do that because Germany can't defend itself. No,
but it's not just that. They're able to because, let's face it, Richard will know more about this than me because he's more clued up on economics. But the dollar is a hegemon of global finance. So if the Americans felt like it, they could crush the German economy if they rebelled.
I don't agree with that at all, mate. I don't think they could. How?
Well, Duke, I mean, 80% of world trade is settled in dollars. I think you
for now, that is changing.
I mean,
that is not changing.
Yeah, I think it is, mate. I really do.
Who's going to compete with the dollar, though?
Well, you've got to look at these BRICS countries for a start.
Nobody
Do we think the ruble and the yuan are going to replace the US dollar?
No.
They are in certain circumstances, but
the BRICS countries. Globally. But in a lot of the world outside Europe, and Europe, I would remind people, is a shrinking part of the world in every sense.
Okay, if the rubles and yuan are used among African countries, it's not the same as, let's say Germany, France, and the UK use them.
Yeah, but all right, but okay, African countries are probably neither here nor there, given what a mess they all are, and I used to live there, so I know.
Duke,
But,
Duke,
hang on. But
Go on.
if you, it's not just about African countries. It's about places like India and China.
Okay, let me black pill you on why liberalism is so powerful. So, no, the fact that America is this sort of deeply liquid liberal market that people can enter into because there's no capital controls is the reason why, and of course being the world hegemon, is the reason why that the dollar is so dominant. Because nobody wants to put their money into the Chinese renminbi or the Russian ruble, because fundamentally they can't be trusted. I mean,
And the Americans
you're going to buy sovereign Chinese debt?
But the Americans can be trusted?
Yes, they can.
Haven't they just stolen a huge amount of money from Russia?
They have. That is true, but you have to remember that if you are on the right side of the regime, you will be looked after. That's why they have these special swap lines.
Okay,
for
so long as you lick the boot, you'll be all right.
Yes, effectively, yeah.
Yeah, right. So how long do you think it's going to be before there's going to be some changes and people are going to say, well, why should we lick this boot?
Because they don't have any other options.
Well, yes, they do. Yes, they do.
don't.
If they funded their own defense, they could tell the Americans to get stuffed.
But they're not, and they're not going to anytime soon.
Well, that remains to be seen, if you ask me, John. But I think it does remain to be seen. I'm by no means sure about this. Look, I tell you what, guys, I would not put it past over the next year to 18 months, us actually having World War III, and none of this will matter because most of us will be dead. Well, good luck with you, mate. I'm glad you think that. I hope you're right, of course. But I am by no means sure this is correct. But let me tell you something. America could not, even if they put their own ground troops in, win in Ukraine. They would not win. I guarantee it. They don't have the supply lines.
Aren't exactly winning either.
Well, no, actually they are, John. But this is not the stream to do it, because this is. I tell you what, I'm actually going to do a stream about this. I'll do a stream which is going to be about the war in Ukraine, which will just be about the military stuff. All right, but America would not win even if they sent their own ground troops into Ukraine. And if they did, it will start World War III, I guarantee it. But,
well, I mean, I think
you guys know that I have been quite bullish about Taiwan and China, right? I think the Americans and their allies, including us, might win in Taiwan. But I don't say we definitely would. We might. But that is the highest you could say about it. That is the highest you could say about it. America's time as a world hegemon is coming to an end, and I guarantee this is true. Just militarily, it's happening. America today is in the position that Britain was at about 1919. Looks enormously strong, the British Empire, biggest it's ever been, but actually it's all the house cards.
I just don't agree.
Well, that's fine. I don't expect you to agree, Richard. But honestly, this is where America is today. America is like Britain was in 1919, just after World War I.
Okay, I'd argue against it. Okay. First of all, you got
except. Sorry, Mitch. Just one final thing. Except America has enormously more debts than Britain did in 1919. Like exponentially more.
I don't think that matters, actually.
Well, there you go. You're a supporter of modern monetary theory, I take it.
No, and I would appreciate it if you stop this kind of like light switch brain thinking that you keep applying to me.
Look, if you don't think debt matters, that's modern monetary theory, isn't it?
No, but of course, the Americans don't have to worry about debt because they issue their own currency and they are the world reserve currency.
But it's a fiat currency. It's worth as much as people think it is.
Doesn't matter.
But of course,
everyone thinks it's worth something.
It's all relative, Duke. The pound's a fiat currency. The euro's a fiat currency.
Yeah, everyone is pretty much. Yes, I know this.
Right, but I suppose you could say that the dollar is the cleanest dirty T-shirt in the laundry basket, right?
Sure.
So on that basis, because everything's relative, I don't see anything else usurping the dollar.
I think a couple of big setbacks and everything could change very easily and quite quickly.
I don't know. I just can't see the Saudi Arabians keeping their money with the Chinese. They don't. You can't. The Chinese don't. They don't have a deep capital market that people can trust. I wouldn't invest my money in China because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
But the Saudi, I get what you're saying, but the Saudi Arabians are becoming increasingly unfriendly to the US, shall we say?
That doesn't matter. They still need to park their reserves somewhere, and that's going to be America.
For now.
Well, for now, yes, but unless China becomes a sort of liberal capitalist system where
it could be
defends
Russia. It could be Russia. It could be Russia rather than China.
I don't think the Russian economy is big enough to handle that kind of capital. It's a tiny market. It's absolutely tiny.
Yeah, but it could be a Russian, Chinese, Indian market, which is not so tiny.
Yeah, but I mean, this all presupposes that they're going to liberalize, and I don't see that.
Well, let's wait and see. Like I said, I'm not. I really think if you look at history, and history is my big deal, you cannot predict stuff. You can't.
I think you can make reasonable assumptions.
You can make guesses. None of us can do anything but make guesses. None of us know what is even going to happen this coming Northern Hemisphere winter, which I think is going to be extremely interesting. I mean, even on what you were saying, Richard, you think that Europe will manage to heat homes, but will have to do blackouts on industry. All right. Now, I don't think Europe's going to manage to heat homes, but maybe you're right, and maybe you're not. But even doing blackouts on industry is going to be disastrous. For example, with Germany, which still has industry, unlike most of us.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. It's going to be extremely painful.
Yeah, and that could change a lot of things. It really could. I mean, I don't think the German government is anywhere near as stable as it looks.
I've seen polling data in Lower Saxony, in northern Germany, the AfD are only polling not even 10%, which I would have thought, given that the AfD are the only party in Germany at the minute opposing the sanctions, I would have thought perhaps the Germans would think, okay, let's stop voting for the likes of the SPD and the CDU and all these lot who are supporting these sanctions, and instead let's go for the AfD, who promised to cut these sanctions and actually promise us some sense of stability rather than us freezing in our homes. But I don't see that as much as people say. In fact, there's the German nationalists I talk to on Telegram who will tell you that the Germans are like Brits. I'd say they're a lot more conformist than the Brits. So they will just stomach pain that the winter's going to bring because they sincerely believe in global homo and all the crap that comes with it because they're that indoctrinated into it.
I think they do. I just think they're fairly comfortable. I think this is the thing that people underestimate.
But they're not. But they're not going to be fairly comfortable for much longer. That's my whole point. Yeah, but they're not going to be in a few months.
Okay, but that's in a few months.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying you can't predict what's going to happen.
Okay, and I don't see. I mean, I'm looking at, let's say, videos of interviews between, reporters and Germans on the street, for example. And I'll just say, okay, we will just stomach it. We'll deal with the pain, and we'll soldier up, and we'll toughen up, and the same stuff that your average boomer will say around national service.
Exactly.
So,
but as John was just saying, that's because at the moment none of this has happened. Let's see what they're saying when it's 5 below zero and they've got no heat.
Okay, I mean, the German nationalist I talked to, he said there's something very German, a bit of attitude that I just explained, which is, I don't know if it's stoicism, but it's certainly like this whole idea that, okay, we're going to have to, toughen ourselves up for the winter. Because let's face it, Germans have been living in relative comfort for the past few decades at least, because their economy's been doing quite well. However, the German economy's got problems with the fact that you've got 20 million people who are the most productive, but that 20 million productive population, that's going to shrink over time because, of course, birth rates and mass immigration aren't doing wonders for it. So let's say, hypothetically, by 2050, the German economy, even if you had all the industry, would be in the right pickle because the pensions, outstripping the wages that your average young German's going to have, because the migrants are taking in aren't exactly, brain surgeons or whatever.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with anything you said there, mate. I'm not disagreeing with anyone on this panel. All I'm saying is we do not know what is going to happen in the future. And I just think that the American position is far less secure than it seems at the moment. And actually, the liberal position, if you like, of most of the European governments is far less secure than it seems. That's all I'm saying. Nothing else. Please discuss.
It's the same with it's like Poland is going through the same stuff that we and the Germans are going through in terms of this winter. But then the government, we're only giving around 2,000 Polish zloty subsidies to everyone.
Which is basically nothing, by the way.
Yeah. Because you got to think, so in the southeast of the country, Sandomierz and other places like that, where the ruling party gets a lot of its votes from, they get their fires from coal, they still use coal fires, unlike say the Germans, and but they have to buy their coal from Russia. They can't mine it anymore because the EU told them not to do it anymore, and the government just cut.
Yep, absolutely right. And I mean, there are people in the German government at the moment who are absolute watermelon greenies. They're socialists pretending to be greens.
I mean, in Germany, the green stuff in Germany is just on another level compared to us.
Again, I feel like once people are freezing and old age pensioners are dying in their unheated homes, things may change.
I mean, know what's going to happen. Ursula von der Leyen will just say, they're dying for the European ideas or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to convince many people when people actually do start dying.
Do you really want to argue that against Germans who, for the past 75 years, have been indoctrinated to accept all these European ideas?
I am perfectly prepared to agree with you that Germans are more conformist than Brits, for example. Absolutely prepared to say, yeah, that's true. But
sorry.
I absolutely agree with you on that. But I think the time will come when people will have had enough of it. And if their companies close down and they lose their jobs and there's no heating, things will change. There's a true fact that all Western civilizations are about 9 missed meals away from anarchy.
I mean, in World War II, we did area bombing of our infrastructure in the idea that once the industry and the infrastructure was bombed, the German people would revolt against Hitler and bring the war to a swifter end. Instead, the German people fought to the bitter end against us.
Yeah, but that's a bit different. That's a bit different, Mitch, because when someone's actually attacking you, you have a reason to fight back. No one's attacking Germany.
Okay.
Apart from the Americans, that is. But,
okay, you have a July plot. So there were Germans who resisted Hitler. So there were actually people within Germany who dissented against the system. Just like there are Germans today, in the form of the AfD, who dissent against the sanctions. That being said, you still got the majority of Germans who are still going to support these sanctions and all the maladaptive effects they're going to bring upon all of us because they're that indoctrinated into global harm for the past 75 years.
Yeah, look, I agree. Carry on, Richard. Sorry, man.
I think one of the biggest dangers is that a well-organized Germany is able to muddle through this winter, I think that could actually be probably the worst outcome, because then there won't be that shock of people actually suffering a bit. And I've got, because the Germans are so efficient and so well organized, that and from the data that I've looked at, it does appear that they've got just about enough gas in storage, and they've got enough LNG deliveries lined up, and there's an element of the variability of the weather. But,
yeah, I was just going to say that. So
if we have a mild, if we have a mild winter,
mild winter,
exactly,
yes.
precisely.
Yeah.
And you're right. We don't know if we're going to get a mild winter or not. So there is an element of luck to this. But I think there is a problem that if we actually muddle through this, okay, that actually kind of makes us weaker going forward, because it doesn't really bring home the full impact of what's taking place. And I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet.
Yeah, look, I'm totally in agreement with you, Richard. I think I 100% agree with what you just said. Spindley makes a good point in the chat. Energy prices will make many industries unprofitable in Europe, and those jobs will all move abroad to where energy is cheaper. Yes, they will.
Yeah.
And once you close down an aluminium plant or something like that, for example, you can't reopen it very easily.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to bring that back online.
Do bear in mind though that has been happening for decades anyway due to labour pricing.
Oh yeah, for sure, I know that. But this is like going to be like a real big shock. And as Richard was just saying, to some degree, it does depend on how bad the winter is in Europe this year. I mean, if we get a very mild winter, I think Richard's right, and Europe will just about fudge through, and that's the worst thing from our point of view as people on the right. But if we get an average winter, then it's going to be dicey, and if we get a cold winter, then that is not going to happen.
Given that we've had a very warm summer, I think it's fairly standard to have a quite cold winter after that. So.
Yep, agreed. Steve in the chat is saying crash programs to build LNG ports. You're still looking at 3 or 4 years to do that.
No, but that's true. That they've brought in a bunch of floating regasification terminals. So they're going balls to the wall, bidding up the price of LNG globally, and that's why we've seen in like Pakistan is having like a real tough time, because. The irony is, these really kind and conscientious Germans who
we're stealing it from everybody else.
Because they're not buying anything from Russia now, it means that they're taking away the natural gas from the poor Pakistanis. I mean, you can't make this up, right?
They're welcome to buy from Russia, aren't they?
Well, but therein lies the problem. So, I mean, and this is where I think where Russia's actually really fucked up. And many macro sort of strategists have pointed this out, which is that all of that natural gas that went to Europe through Nord Stream 1 and eventually 2, those assets are now kind of stranded, because the pipelines that they had only went to Europe. You can't, I think it's the Yamal Peninsula. I mean, maybe
Yes.
Mitch knows the name. But that gas is now stored, is now basically stuck there, because if Europe's not going to buy it, there's no infrastructure in place to move it to different markets.
This is why they've been burning it off, isn't it?
They've just been flaring it, because you can't, if you're going to cap those wells. From what I understand, it's very hard to then bring them back online. So they're either so that asset is really stranded there. It's funny really, because when Duke, you remember when we had the stream back in February? And I thought that Russia was going to sort of steamroller over Ukraine, and
yes, a lot of us thought that might happen. Yes,
and in hindsight, I mean, I basically did everything wrong. And what I didn't foresee was that, wow, what if Europe actually does go through with the decision to never buy any natural resources from Russia ever again? That is potentially, $50 billion worth of revenue each year gone from the Russians. And they've got this stranded asset, which even if they wanted to then ship that as LNG, the sanctions mean that they probably can't even buy LNG ships from Europe because they're the only guys that produce them.
But the Russians are also building pipelines to the east as well, as you well know.
Yeah, but they don't come from the Yamal Peninsula.
Fine, but there's no reason why the Russians can't link those up.
Yeah, but how long does it take to do that? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, but I mean, Russia's a huge country.
Probably quicker than building LNG ports.
I don't know. I can't comment on that.
Well, look, to build a permanent LNG port, you're looking at 3 to 4 years.
I mean, I know that with underwater pipelines, like for example, Nord Stream 2, it's going to take 10 years to build that. Then you got Kazakhstan, for example. They've got their own gas and oil pipelines, and they were planning on undercutting the Russians by building pipelines to Azerbaijan, through to Turkey, into Europe. But the problem is there's no underwater pipelines in the Caspian Sea, so it's going to take them 10 years. For example, overland ones, like the ones Russians are planning on to build with China, I've heard they don't take as much as the underwater ones. So,
well, they obviously won't take as long as the underwater ones. It's much easier to build a pipeline on land than underwater.
Yeah, but my problem there is that let's say Russia manages to completely replace their gas market in Europe with China. Okay, you've made China more reliant on China, so it's going to become a position where
you've made China more reliant on Russia. You mean?
Well, it goes both ways, doesn't it? So the Russians have to sell gas to China, otherwise they don't get any money. But then China doesn't get any gas. They could buy gas from America, but I mean, there's a theory that
the Chinese do buy gas from America.
Yeah, they do buy some, but the point is that the Chinese are not going to be as idiotic as the Europeans were to be dependent on the potential enemy for their gas. It's just not going to happen.
Not just that, I mean, there's 2 points. China doesn't allow itself to be reliant for more than 15% on a single supplier for anything. And secondly, with China, there's theory among some geopolitical strategists that by 2025 there will be a war between China and Taiwan because Chinese demographics are.
Yeah, I think that's extremely likely. And who's going to win that? I think we will, but I am by no means sure. And even if we do win, it's going to cost thousands of casualties and a lot of sunk ships.
Do you? I mean, there's one thing that I can't figure out in your thinking.
Yeah.
So you will say in your adamant, and I agree with you that Ukraine is not a strategic national interest for the UK. I agree.
Yeah.
But I don't understand your stance on Taiwan. How is that?
All right. If China takes Taiwan, their next target will be Japan, and shortly thereafter Australia. I guarantee that.
I can understand why you worry about Australia.
Well, yeah, fine.
I mean, China's never had a history of expansion ever, from my understanding.
Yeah, they've never had a powerful navy either.
Isn't China, as it stands, effectively built on an expansionist? Yeah, it's swallowed up virtually everyone round about them, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't understand why you think that they would sort of. I mean, the Japanese are a different race. Different race, speak a different language.
To say the Chinese, we talk about the Poles hating the Russians. Okay, that is small beer compared to the Chinese feelings about Japan.
I don't know. I just don't see it. I think the world sort of moved away from colonizing countries.
Richard. Look, humans are not rational creatures. If we were, World War I and World War II would never have happened. We're not rational creatures, mate. We're not.
Well, then why hasn't the US physically conquered, other territories?
Well,
what makes?
But look, I think America has something like 400 bases around the world.
Yeah, but they didn't invade them literally. I mean,
well, a lot of them they actually did, but yeah.
Well, no, that's not true.
No, it is true, Richard. They did it in World War II. Trust me. Oh dear. Listen, look, mate. When you talk economics, I'm going to shut my mouth because you know about economics far more than I do. When you're going to talk about military history, I know more about it than you do. And trust me, America invaded a lot of these places in World War II and never left.
Okay, well, if I can't have an opinion, then there's no discussion to have.
No, you can absolutely have an opinion. I'm just telling you why you're not right. I mean, why do you think America has an enormous base on Okinawa? Which is a big Japanese island. Because they invaded it in World War II and they never left.
Okay,
why does America have an enormous base in Japan, on the mainland islands of Japan? Because they invaded it in World War II and they never left.
Okay, but they never physically annexed the land outright. It's more they've got the Japanese as a kind of vassal state. I think that's what Richard's point was. That's what Richard's point
okay,
was.
so that is such a big difference. All right, in India, Britain had many things called princely states, which were supposedly independent little bits of India in charge of some Raja or somebody, yeah? But they were absolutely run by the British.
I mean, when you look at maps from 1900, all of India is coloured red. So
yes, but if you look at maps from 1900, which are a bit more detailed, you'll find there are probably 50, 60 princely states within India, which were supposedly independent, but they really weren't. Every single one of them had a British resident, and every single one of them had a regiment that was going to go into the British Indian Army anytime it was asked to.
Okay, I mean, I can see how a country could be sort of taken over economically, and then through a slow process, that country becomes a vassal state. But actual warfare, like you're suggesting, I think the warfare has moved on from kinetic warfare, and it's gone economic, it's gone cyber. I could entirely see a country. I mean, Australia's kind of already in that process where the Chinese come in, they buy up industry, they buy up influence. That kind of sort of subtle colonization is in a way already taking place. But the idea of sort of old school kinetic conquering, I just seems not fit for purpose anymore, is basically what I'm getting at.
Well, you can think that. A lot of people have been saying that for a lot of years.
Because, I mean, it won't take long for the Japanese to have nuclear weapons. I mean, they could generate, they can.
But they don't have them now, do they?
No, but come on, they've got a fleet of nuclear power stations. They can, if they wanted to, they could be nuclear ready within no time. And same with the Germans.
Well, no time. What's your idea of no time?
I don't know. For all we know, they already have the technology.
Yeah, maybe they do. I mean, South Africa, the white South African government had nuclear weapons courtesy of Israel, but they got rid of them before they let the black government take over. Did you know that, Richard?
I think I was vaguely aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they had nuclear bombs, and they got rid of them all before they allowed Mandela to take over. The former terrorist Mandela.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm pretty certain that the Japanese can have nuclear weapons.
Oh look, I'm not saying for 1 minute that Japan or Germany couldn't develop nuclear bombs if they wanted to, but they'd have to have a independent foreign policy in order to do that, and they don't have that at the moment, as we have been talking about on this stream.
I don't know about Japan, because I mean Shinzo Abe did a lot to challenge that sort of anti-war thinking now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Abe, but yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I quite like Shinzo Abe. With Germany though, do you really think it's not even just like the lack of independent foreign policy. It's how propagandized the average German is around the idea of Germany ever having any sort of weaponry. I mean, for example, it was only in 2015 that the German army was sending weapons abroad to Syria. That was the first time that they exported weapons abroad. The first time they sent troops abroad was probably was it NATO or UN in Bosnia? Yeah, it wasn't like there's a massive taboo around Germany ever doing anything vaguely military or martial
Yep,
abroad.
absolutely correct. And
So
when German troops were sent to Afghanistan, they were notorious for not doing anything.
yeah, because I mean, you have I remember, I think it was it 2016? I think it was. There was like this war game exercise done in the Arctic where the German troops were having broomsticks for guns because Ursula von der Leyen, who was defense minister at the time, completely ran the German army into the
I'm
ground.
sure it wasn't Ursula von der Leyen because she's the EU woman, but yeah, I see.
She's Belgian, isn't she, as well?
Yeah,
she grew up like the first 13 years of her life in Belgium. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, look, do you think that this propaganda, which the Germans have had since 1945, do you really think this is deeper than all of Prussian militarism going back to at least, what's his name, the Great?
What, Friedrich the Great?
Yeah. Do you really think that, like, if push comes to shove, this propaganda since 1945, which has been very unfair, in my opinion, for the most part, on ordinary Germans, do you think that this is like deeper than like hundreds and hundreds of years of German history?
Yes, I think they're deeply shell shocked and battered people, like broken. What happened to them after 1945? Broken.
Maybe.
All right. I wouldn't even bother saying like an essay worth of this. I would just say there's a song by a band called Rammstein called Deutschland. That song pretty much explains Germany about 75 years. Like, it is so like the German, for example, when you look at German music in terms of, let's say, rock music, they really go for it heavy because they've just been in a really sadomasochistic mood since 1945 with all the Glaberhammer crap they've swallowed. So, like with the Germans, they're so battered and so spiritually defeated as a people that it will take a lot to wake them up. It would be an achievement in of itself if AfD managed to get like a majority in the Bundestag. Can
we just go back to that point about the AfD? So somebody mentioned about their polling. So is it the case? Because this would be really quite sad if this is the case. But despite everything that's happened with the energy crisis, so on and so forth, that even with this kind of crisis, the AfD hasn't really been able to make any gains. Is that what's happened?
Yeah, like they never poll beyond 12-13% of a vote.
So they can't even sort of capitalize on this problem. I mean, that to me just kind of says everything about Germany, that even in these sort of terrible times, they'll just, pull their shoulders back and take it.
Hang on though, Richard. We've been talking about the fact that Germany's had it pretty good for the last few decades, and that may change over the winter. If that does, then the German public's reaction might change too, don't you think?
Well, but then how do you, to bring this back to Italy, because I think from my understanding is that part of the rise of or what's helped the rise of this right-wing coalition in Italy has been the impact of the energy crisis, right?
Yeah.
So why is it that that's more acutely impacting Italy compared to Germany? I suppose maybe you could answer that by saying, well, Italy's in a more shit situation to begin with. whereas Germany hasn't really suffered in the same way that Italy has.
That's exactly what I would say. And also, Italy is a less stable country than Germany, isn't it? Always has been.
But that then makes me think that actually, for there to be any change in Germany, there has to be a lot more pain, like a lot more. Not just an energy crisis, but like a prolonged energy crisis.
Hang on, I just need to do something.
Yeah, on the point of the AFD, I'd also say that they're very split over the whole Russia thing because you'll get some people in the AFD who are pro-Russia because in Germany you have Ostalgie in the east, like in the former East German Republic, you'll have a lot of like nostalgic ex-communists and people like that who generally quite like Russia. And you've also got what are called the Russlanddeutsche, who are Germans who come from the east, who, because they hate global homo, they simp for Russia. However, most of the AFD just want the sanctions gone. So they all agree that the sanctions have to go, but because they can't agree over whether Russia's good or bad, they can't really agree on much at the moment. So even the AFD is quite split from what I've heard.
Yeah, it's a shame that you can't just have a position that's just neutral. That to me is the ideal situation where you say, you know, obviously we want peace, but this ethnic turf war between Slavs is nothing to do with us. I mean, that's my point of view. I don't want to get involved and pick sides in what is a Slavic turf war. I just don't care. Please, can we just have cheap energy?
I'm exactly the same, but I also think it is ridiculous of Europe to depend on a potential enemy. And I'm not saying Russia is an enemy, but a potential enemy like Russia. It is insane for them to depend on Russian energy.
But we don't really have much choice.
Why can't they build their own nuclear power stations or coal-fired power stations, etc.?
Because we have to make a distinction between types of energy. So natural gas is good for generating electricity, yes, but it's also used for heating homes. So literally, we just combust the gas for heat. But you can't really do the same with electric. I mean, I suppose you could have electric radiators, you could have heat pumps, but most of us, especially in the UK and in Germany, I think, we've got gas-fired boilers to heat our homes. So there's always an element of needing that gas. And, you know, Europe is not a particularly resource-rich continent. So there is, you know, whether you like it or not, we've got this big energy superpower on our doorstep, and we should probably do our best to utilize that resource as best we can.
Yeah,
so we have someone in JB in the chat called JB in the chat who I can't ban. I literally can't ban him from my own channel. But he's not fair. No way.
I mean, from what I see of him, he's just pro-Ukrainian. I mean, I disagree with him.
No, look, I've watched him. I've watched him for weeks. Yeah, he's absolutely pro-Ukrainian. I've banned him twice, and he keeps coming back. So he's obviously got something to do with YouTube.
Or he's just making different accounts.
No, he's got the same name every time he comes back. If he changed his name, I'd agree.
I'm just going to address...
But he's not a Fed. He's not a Fed. Of course he's not. Right.
Sorry, let me just... can I just address George? Because he said I'm wrong. You can absolutely use nuclear for heating, I presume, by electric. Yes, you could do. My point would be it's not as efficient. Or
fine, it might not be. It might not be as efficient, Richard. But like, who on earth, in their right minds, is dependent on another nation who could become your enemy for your energy needs? It's just insane.
Every country in the world is pretty much.
Well, precisely, John. I mean, we buy oil from people. Yes, it's more distributed. We can pick and choose the people that we buy it from. But if we buy LNG from the USA, they're a potential enemy. Why?
Yeah, but hang on. What I'm trying to say here, Richard, is that if, like Germany, for example, 80% of your energy needs or whatever it is comes from Russia, that is ridiculous.
Well, it's only ridiculous if you treat Russia like a pariah state.
No. It's only ridiculous if Russia decides not to like you.
Well, I would argue that Russia's probably only decided not to like us because we've treated them like a pariah state for decades.
100%, and I totally agree with you, John. But what I'm saying is, leaving the Americans out of this totally. Just say there was no America, and it was just about Germany buying all their energy from Russia.
You have to
understand. Insane.
You have to understand, though, that Germany is a nation that shut off its nuclear power because of earthquakes in Japan. It's not a logical country.
For sure.
Yes, I've also heard in Germany, you get this whole idea of firewood in Germany, and we've got plenty of woodland, but I don't know how successful that will be. I know in Poland,
like German woodlands often have these piles of logs that have been chopped down for various purposes. And as far as I've been seeing from watching German YouTube channels, these things have been disappearing mysteriously over the summer and autumn.
Yeah, but German guy I talked to, he said that so you have like these private properties in Germany where they'll be in the woodland, and they'll chop down logs, and if you get any surplus wood, they'll put it outside for anyone to use. Like it's kind of, like, because Germans are very sort of community oriented, so they'll allow that. However, because of the blatant retardation that the German government's been doing lately, all those logs that those kind people are doing in Schwarzwald and other places like that, all those logs are disappearing, and a lot of people now are having to chop down trees in the woods by themselves, which is a whole complete new thing to them. And it's not just that. I mean, because the Germans are very green oriented, like they're very watermelony, whatever you want to call it. Even then, you'll get some of these people who will just say, I'm not going to chop down a tree because I'm going to be screwing up with the environment. So where does that leave some of those people? So we can't get gas from Russia, but then we won't chop down a tree to heat themselves because they're that oriented into the green stuff. So
self-destructive, which I think Germany has been for a long time, really.
I mean, as I said, listen to that song "Deutschland" by Rammstein. It pretty much explains.
Yeah, I like Rammstein. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Some of their songs, I detest. Like Deutschland, for example, was just the lyrics in that are just, it's all about we have that song.
But a lot of their lyrics are piss taking, aren't they, Mitch?
I mean, you have links 1, 2, 3, which means left 1, 2, 3, which is a very communist thing to say. Then,
but they're former East Germans, aren't they?
They grew up in East Berlin, if I remember correctly. So they are.
As far as I can work out, East Germans generally, apart from Merkel, were a bit more based.
Yeah. It depends. I mean, a lot of these are nostalgic for the DDR. So, if you're anti-communist, for example, like the German nationals I talk to, it's pretty nuanced. A lot of them vote for the AfD, which is, I mean, the AfD aren't as radical as I would like them to be, but compared to the status quo, I'd vote for them if I was a German.
All right, I've got to agree with 555 here. What happened to the topic of Italy? We're supposed to be talking about Italy.
Well, we kind of are, but it's a fluid conversation because it touches on so many interconnected topics, really.
Yeah, of course it does. But yeah, all right, let's try and bring it back to Italy a little bit. I mean, is this girl a fascist? I don't care if she is, to be honest. In fact, probably be a good thing if she was, but is she?
I think, well, she was. I mean, you saw the.
She was also cute when she was younger, which is most unusual.
Yeah,
for
I mean, she was certainly quite. She was certainly quite hot for sure. I think given, I just feel like Italy and many of these European countries, they are virtually powerless now, because these technocrats in the EU dictate how things are going to be.
For now.
As you say. So it doesn't leave much room, and I think that they have to sort of, kiss the toe, as it were.
Simple Pirate says, has Mussolini's granddaughter entered Parliament? I'm sure Mussolini's granddaughter was in Parliament years ago, wasn't she? In Italy?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was, yeah. Like Italy, look, the thing about Italy is it doesn't have stable governments. The Italian government makes the French government look really stable, which is, if you know anything about, like, governments, that's not good, So, but yeah, Mussolini's granddaughter was in Parliament years ago, and she was also quite cute back in the day, as I recall.
Yeah, I heard she did this comment where he was like, "It's better to be a fascist than that certain F word for gay people I can't say."
Oh, look, if you're going to talk about Italian fascism was not racist. I've got nothing really against Italian fascism, except for when they wanted to fight the Brits, which didn't go well for them. But apart from that, I haven't got anything against Mussolini, really. Like, he didn't kill hundreds of thousands of people like Stalin and Hitler did.
It's funny you say that, because that's what Berlusconi was interviewed, and apparently he said, "What's wrong with Mussolini? He didn't kill anyone."
He hardly did. And while Mussolini was in charge of Italy, no Jews were slaughtered in Italy. While Mussolini was in charge, it was only after the surrender to the Allies, when the Germans took over, that happened.
I must admit, I find Italy to be quite an interesting place, because the fact that you can be like openly fascist, and you can be a political party, you can be in there. People have been like in government and they've been fascists, and presumably you don't get deplatformed for these kind of radical views in Italy. It sounds like a much more free place than anywhere in Northern Europe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know in Italy, they've got this party called Casa Pound, who they actually run a youth hostel, I believe, in the centre of Rome itself, and they're full on like Mussolini fanboys, and they don't get arrested or anything by the police. So I'm looking at it from an intellectual perspective. I'm thinking Italy. I mean, I know with Italy there was some war criminals like Rodolfo Graziani and others like him, but they never got punished because Italy just never got the war guilds the same way the Germans did.
Well, yeah, that's very interesting that they didn't.
All right, but let's look at this, gents. We have Ukraine, which has people like the Azov Battalion and other units, which are absolutely Stefan Bandera supporting, basically German-style Nazis, which everyone in the West says is okay. Everyone in the West says is okay, and the Jewish premier of Ukraine says, great, no problem. And yet these people are supposedly okay to the West, whereas Italian-style fascists, who were never big-time racists at all, in fact, many Italian Jewish people were Italian fascists, they're bad somehow and far right. This is just insane and lie. And it's a lie. It's a historical lie.
Well, we'll say with Azov Battalianism, I posted a picture in the Ukraine War News tab on Discord where you have an Azov Battalion soldier, so it's Azov patch, and directly above it is a pride flag, right above it.
Can we? This needs to be shared with This needs to be shared. I'm gonna have to share my screen and show everybody.
But man, it's like I always thought German Nazis were a bit gay, but that was just me. You know, it's the Hugo Boss uniforms that gave me the clue. But yeah,
I'm going to share a tab. Can I share this, Duke?
yeah, man. Of course you can, as long as it's not going to get my channel banned. Yes, you can.
I can't imagine it would.
He's just promoting Ukrainian LGBTQ rights.
Oh, that's fine. Then.
Absolutely,
no.
John. Absolutely.
Well, fine.
Well,
then Susan will love that.
Yes, lots.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Lots and lots of gay.
All inclusive.
There you go. There we have a Ukrainian Nazi with a gay pride flag.
Where's his COVID patch saying how many jabs he's had?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm vaccinated.
Man.
Yeah, it's not just that. The Ukrainian nationalists, they've also got weapons like the Tavor assault rifles from Israel. So we're not even that neo-Nazi either. I mean,
right.
So I wouldn't even say, at this point, I think you have most of them are just footballers who hate Russia. That's the whole gist, is I hate Russia so
We've
much.
all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of this, but like there's so much hypocrisy around Ukraine and its very strong Nazi links. And like then they call supposedly Italian fascists bad because they're far right.
Well, like I said, you know, when you go through a list of all of the things that the Fratelli d'Italia party stand for, it's just like 1990s conservatism. And I mean, when you read these news articles,
Yeah, but that's left wing now, Richard. Bear that.
Yeah, no, but when you read these news articles,
sorry, that's far right. I beg your pardon.
But they really are clutching at straws. And my impression is that actually the slur far right and fascist is losing its sting.
Yes.
Extremely rapidly.
Yes.
To the point that I think most people just don't give a shit anymore, because it's just it's like the boy that cried wolf.
Yeah, totally agree. Really, if someone called me a fascist, I'd just laugh. I mean, I'm not a fascist, although I have certain sympathy for Italian style fascism, but I'm not a fascist. And I detest communists more, probably. But yeah, but this stuff in Ukraine is just even more making it obviously such a hypocrisy.
Yeah, I've also on the Russian side, there's this unit called Rusich, who when you look at them, so the West will call them neo-Nazis because we've got a symbol which is called a Kolovat, which it looks kind of like the swastika, but it isn't. It's basically a Slavic pagan symbol. But you'll see some of their...
No, that's a load of rubbish. It was invented. it's a neo-Nazi sort of 1940s, 1950s invention. It's gained popularity recently. There's no historic evidence that it extends back any further than 1940s, 1950s.
Can I just answer simple clarity? He said thoughts on Heydrich. I think he was a well-educated Nazi thug who was chucked out of the German Navy for not being an officer and a gentleman. That's my thoughts on Heydrich. And by the way, they're true.
Yeah, sure. Jobu's right. You know, far right is really just a term for anybody that's not with the program. Absolutely.
Yep.
If you don't fit the regime narrative, you're just far right.
We would all be called far right, and like between us, like I'm sure we have many differences, but we're not really far right. You know, I like even me, and I might be more extreme than most of you. I'm not in any way, shape, or form a supporter of the guy with the crappy little moustache from the middle of the 20th century. I don't like him at all.
Yeah, it's what? It's like with a like level 4. I mean, I remember back when I was back in my tanky days, back when I was pro Stalin, I used to get called far right by the Trotskyites because Stalin had some more opinions which were a lot more socially conservative compared to what Trotskyites believe.
But there was a definite pipeline between Trotskyist and neocon. I mean, look, Christopher Hitchens for a start.
Pretty certain he's still a trot.
Well, Christopher is dead, but
Strong ethnic link as well.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Only half.
Oh no! I didn't mean to pick on Hitchens per se, but just in general, that milieu is just like, you know, it's all one-way traffic with one particular ethnic group.
Some of them, but like, I mean, Christopher Hitchens definitely went Trotskyist to neocon, and I think there were more people that did that than many people realize, which is why the neocon liberal left, which like absolutely runs America today, and like people like Truss are like what they are. Although Truss is so dim, she probably doesn't even realize it.
Yeah, she was a liberal Democrat, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah, it's just pure opportunism, which is also what, you know, that ethnic group did, going from Trotsky to neocon. Just pure opportunism.
Yeah, absolutely right. I totally agree. And, you know, I mean, Truss was a feminist. She was pro-EU. She was an anti-monarchist. And here she is, British Prime Minister. And, like, what has she done so far which doesn't prove all of those things still to be true? Nothing that I can see.
She's giving me some of my tax back.
Oh, okay. You got 900 quid, mate. Well done.
Well, if that's the best I'm going to get, I'll take it.
Yeah, but it ain't going to say Britain, is it?
Well, nothing's going to say Britain now, so you know.
Oh, come on. Don't say that, please.
Well, you've all disappeared to foreign climes, so you're not going to be saving it.
Mate, I'm still around. That's not true. I still vote in British elections. I have a residence in Britain. And when my son gets married, it'll be in Britain.
You vote? Who the hell are you voting for?
Not the Conservatives, and certainly not Labour.
BNP don't still stand, do they?
I always vote for a real right of centre party that has the best chance in my area, and that is no chance whatsoever. But that's all I vote for.
I mean, at this point, what party has a real chance of it? I mean, you got Reform UK, who are run by a factual who keeps talking about tax rates, but can't talk about immigration for some reason. You've got UKIP, who have just completely folded. You've got For Britain, whose leader got so blackpilled after COVID that she just thought, yeah, you threw him a towel.
I thought they folded.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mitch. I've said this for, I don't know, nearly 2 years now. All of these little right of centre populist parties need an alliance.
That they can score 6% of the vote.
No, they need an alliance, but they don't run against each other. And they need someone good at their head to do their publicity, and then maybe things could change.
I mean, the only chance.
But we're miles away from that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the only chance we've got is Farage, but he doesn't want to get back into politics, so does he?
No, apparently not.
Well, I think if you're spending your entire time relying on Farage or someone to do your dirty work for you, then you may as well just give up.
I agree. If you can't just have a talisman, you need like a deep bench of people that you can dip into when
that was the whole problem with Farage, is that he was never a party person. He was just a personality. He
destroyed UKIP when he left it. And look at the bloke he suggested to run UKIP, who was meant to destroy it, if you ask my opinion.
I actually subscribe to the belief that people like Farage they're built up to capture dissident sentiment and then to deflate it and then to destroy it. I think that is I think that's what the purpose of someone like him is.
I don't know. I think Richard, he spent too many years working to get Britain out of the EU to say that, to be honest. He did spend a lot of years doing that, don't you think?
Yeah, but then there's just no. There was nothing. Didn't build on anything afterwards like that.
No, as soon as he got the referendum and we won, he left and destroyed the party by putting in place a leader who he knew would destroy the party.
He attempted to leave a number of times before that.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not going to argue about that. Look, guys, I'm not suggesting we're in a good position, not for a minute. But I do think that the only chance Britain has, I mean, I know that some people like George in the chat and maybe you, John, think that we can do it via the Conservative Party. I don't think we can, to be honest.
I'm not particularly convinced of that either. To be quite honest, I think most of us are going to make some personal decisions about things.
We need a third party in UK that is really right of centre. That's what we need.
It's too late for that.
No, it's never too late, mate. While there is life, there is hope. While there is life, there is hope. It's not too late, but we have to have something like that. Unless it's going to be like really bloody.
I don't think you'll get to that. I think not in our lifetimes. People are too comfortable.
I disagree with that, John, to be honest.
You're welcome to disagree, but
I think that's going to change.
You're not leading the revolution either.
I never said I would, mate. I'll be dead by the time it happens, I'm sure.
Well, this is what I just said, in our lifetime, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but I'm a lot older than you, mate. I reckon you might see it, but I won't.
I think the census is going to demonstrate that there basically isn't, there isn't a significant enough majority for that anymore.
Yeah,
I don't think that even matters, to be honest with you. Although I think you're wrong, it's not like there's still going to be a significant enough majority. And obviously all of this is in Minecraft, Susan. But yeah, I don't see the Brits going out with a whimper, but maybe they will. You guys might be right. Maybe.
The Celts did. It's,
No, they didn't. They fought for fucking generations.
There is very little evidence that there was any fighting.
If you say so, I'm going to have to.
There is very little archaeological evidence and documentary evidence, as you, I'm sure you know, of any kind of genocide on the part of the Anglo-Saxons.
No, I know, no, not genocide, but yeah, there was a fair bit of fighting. There was. Genocide is a word we all chuck around.
If you've got evidence for that, you're doing better than most historians. So,
well,
I mean, according to Survivor Joy,
carry on, Mitch. Sorry,
I was going to say, according to Survivor Joy, it's like what? So your average Englishman is 25 to 50% Anglo-Saxon, 11 to 57% like Iron Age Britain. So basically, like the Britons that were like Boudica. And then
the Celts, etc.
Yeah, and then there's a third component that makes up the rest, which is basically French, because in Middle Ages, from the Merovingian, Frankish, all the way to Angevin Empire and so forth, we had a lot of French intermixed with us, which surprises me because it's never been mentioned before. But yeah, that seems to be what that genetic study I shared in my Discord said.
And all of those races were, in any case, very closely genetically related.
Yeah, but even then,
before.
that's a cope. That's a cope.
No,
because
it's not a
it-
cope. It's
because you
not
just get-
a cope.
You're just
It's
going,
not.
well, as long as if they can't be British, as long as they're our next door neighbours, and
No,
if they can't be our next door neighbours, as long as they're the next door neighbours, but one.
No, John, that is not what I mean, and it's not a cope. Those people were all closely genetically related.
Yeah, and if you go back far enough, we're all closely genetically
No,
related.
all right. Do you believe in the out of Africa thing?
No, I don't believe in the out of Africa.
Nor
'cause
do I.
believe they've proven
Nor
that
do
it's
I.
more out of Indo-Europe.
Nor
now.
do I.
Anyway.
Nor do I. I don't believe in it either.
Mm.
So, hang on. Let me just get rid of this leftist bastard. You're gone. Thank you. Okay. But yeah.
Oh, George isn't a leftist. He's not.
Yeah, he is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. I used to know him on channels I used to frequent with George. He really is a leftist. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. But yeah, it's not cope, mate. These people were quite closely related. And the people who are coming into the UK today are not at all closely related and have nothing to do with us. And we're getting riots in cities between Hindus and Muslims, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, notably between the two immigrant parties, not the British. So, like I say, I don't think you're going to see the kind of.
I think the British are more warlike than you do, John, but that's just me.
Again, you chose to leave. This is like.
Yeah, well, where did I chose to leave to?
Well, it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, it does. I chose to leave to go to South Africa, where I joined the world's last colonial war.
Okay, but it's not relevant as to whether that's helping Britain spearhead a future that's British and not anything else.
Yeah, but I think the British are a bit more warlike than you think they are.
They're not demonstrating it at the moment. And
no, they're not.
Yeah.
But I think they will in due course. I really do think they will in due course. I mean, I agree totally with Puffwagon, who says at present we're really getting shafted, but I reckon the time is going to come when people are going to get fed up with that. In Minecraft, of course, Susan. But
Well, did they? I mean, for me, the really disappointing thing is that in South Africa, nobody sort of got sick and tired of that. They just went down with a whimper.
What were they supposed to do, man?
Well, you say that, Duke. You say that, Duke. But what's the difference between that and what's occurring in the UK?
Majority population.
Yeah, but that's happening in the UK now.
Okay, how much of a majority, at worst, do you think the UK will have come this census?
I don't know about this census, but I always sort of think about 2060, 2066, whatever. But
well, I don't, because I'll be long dead by then. But what do you think? What do you think this census is going to show?
I don't know.
In terms of Anglo-Celtic people versus fur-board immigrants.
I have no idea. But based on what I see on the streets, it's I mean, you turn up at the airport, it's like, what the fuck?
But do you think it could be? Do you think it will be less than 70%?
No, I don't think so. Well, where are we now? I don't even know where we are now officially.
Well, we were about 87 or something like that. The last one.
I think we could be in the low 70s.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm guessing.
That's what I think too. That's what I think. But that is entirely different to being 10%, which is what the Afrikaners and English-speaking white South Africans were in 1992.
That is true. But I think the thing that really disappoints me about South Africa and that kind of really frightens me is that despite being such a minority, there's still no block vote or there's no kind of
they just all moved to Britain.
Hardly any of them moved to Britain.
Oh no, I know lots of white South Africans.
So do I, but most of them didn't move to Britain. Most of them moved to Australia or Canada or what have you. They didn't move to Britain.
So what you're saying is they left the country rather than do anything about it.
The English-speaking guys did. The Afrikaners largely didn't.
And they stayed and have done very little about it.
Oh, I don't know. They've got Orania and some of these other things that go on. You need to go and watch someone like Conscious Caracal to work out what's going on in South Africa.
Well, I would argue there's very little that they can do. If you don't have any institutional power, you're fucked.
Yeah, absolutely right. But in Britain, the Anglo-Celts still do have some institutional.
Remind me what institutional power we have.
Yeah, what institutional power do we have?
Well, you've got to use it, of course. You have to use it.
What do you have?
Well,
universities captured, schools captured, police captured.
Totally agree. All
medical
of that is totally
institutions true. Captured, government captured, local government captured.
I totally agree with all of that. But if the British people as a whole decided, look, we're not going to put up with this, and even on the voting story said, well, we're going to vote for people who are not going to allow this to happen anymore, the Conservatives and Labour would be fucked.
I just think you are mistaken if you think people care enough about this to vote for David Curtin or, you know.
I'm not suggesting they're going to vote for David Curtin, but for a new third party, I think, yeah.
Another new party.
Yes. Yeah, it has to be another new party, mate. It has to be.
I mean, it only took the BNP, like 20, 30 years to get 5% of the vote. I mean, there's not time.
And then what happened?
And then, yeah, exactly, John. And then it collapsed. And the same with UKIP, you know.
All right, so you guys
30 years of work.
So you guys are total defeatists.
No.
Yes, that's why
we can't do fun. Yeah, I noticed that, Richard. I did see. But yeah, I look. You guys are total defeatists. I'm not. I'm sorry.
I'm just a realist. I think the British Empire is still going through the same collapse that the Roman Empire went through. It's a long, drawn out one. I don't think it's coming back. I think we'll all have to be part of whatever comes next if it happens in our lifetimes, which I don't expect it will.
The Tories will be the first to adopt the hijab. I'll tell you that right now. Anything that will keep them in power, they will be the first.
Totally right.
Rees-Mogg will be on his feet.
Rees-Mogg will be dead before that happens in the UK, but never mind.
I can see him converting, dropping Catholicism. Oh no, this Islam's much more hardcore. I prefer it.
Yeah,
anything for the vote.
I'm sorry, I'm not just. I get where you're coming from, and I agree with you, but it ain't gonna happen.
Okay.
I do. I get where you're coming from, and I do agree with you. But
I am looking forward to the Iron Duke political party.
Never going to happen, mate.
Well, there we go.
I listen, mate. I joined the British Army in 18. That was my bit for defending Britain. Sorry.
I hate to make the contrast or the comparison with AA, but it just feels like I just see a lot of what we're doing is basically being down the pub with our mates, except it's leaving permanent evidence for when it's finally time for them to come for us.
Well, if they come for me, good luck. They'll get a fight. So I don't agree with that either.
I think I'm actually optimistic. I think there will be somewhere to go. We just don't know where that place is going to be yet.
It's not Britain, though, is it? That's what you're saying.
I don't think so.
Wow. Richard and John become mates. Wow.
Oh, I'm not leaving the country, am I?
Not yet, no. But yeah.
Don't even have a passport. I ain't going anywhere.
Hey, look, guys, we're going to do a stream on the pros and cons of leaving the UK next week or two, and everyone here is welcome to join it. But, and I've done it, and there are pros, but there are also cons as well. So, but I'm not as black-pilled on British people as you guys are.
You can die in a ditch for something that very few people care about, or you can figure out what's best to do with your life and get on and live it. That's how I see it.
Or things may change and everything may change.
What may change?
People's views on stuff and what they support and what they don't support may change. They may, because they always have in the past.
People's views on Enoch Powell in the past were very supportive, and yet here we are today calling him a racist. Everyone.
Do you call him a racist?
No, you know what I mean.
But I don't call him a racist. Mitch doesn't call him a racist. Richard doesn't call him a racist.
We're in a very special select group.
All right, fine, but you don't think more and more people are thinking.
You know full well that if you turn on the news, anything to do with Enoch Powell, and anything he proposed in that single speech that he didn't really propose in that single speech, it's one way only.
I still think most British people support, even today, what Enoch Powell said in that speech.
And 50 years after he said it, how have things gone?
That's
after he had people marching in the street saying we want Enoch Powell.
Totally agree. I'm not disagreeing.
And rolled over and let it happen.
Yep, totally agree.
And they still are $1 million a year, and now even more because the GDP.
And the Conservative Party is the great betrayers of the British people. I totally agree with that, John.
Yep, but they're still taking it, laying down.
For now.
There were less Germans that landed ashore in Britain than there are immigrants. We did far more about that.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that, mate. I still don't think the British people are lost. I think we will fight back.
Yeah, they're not lost. They'll just end up in their own little annexes like Wales and
Don't agree. Sorry. Don't agree.
It's already happening. You don't need to agree. My home city's already flipping war zone between India and Pakistan.
Yep, I know. But things will change. They might even change this winter. We never know.
Yeah, you're right, Duke. I mean, like fundamentally, you're correct that there is the possibility for change. I just think that change has to emanate from the US first, because really, I view the US as being the linchpin in all of this. If whatever happens there, basically, will filter out everywhere else. So
all right. The in the US, as far as I can work out from the Americans I follow, which is not many, but the ones I do follow, the Democrats are going to have a disastrous midterm election. But we'll see.
I don't know. Is it everything? I mean, I follow some spicy content on Telegram, and they've got the opposite view. Their view is kind of like the GOP just fucked everything up.
Well, we'll see.
Republicans.
We'll see. I don't really follow the spicy guys because mostly they're a bit out there. But I
actually think they've got some of the best analysis. Actually,
some of them maybe, but not all of them. I think that the Democrats should have a disastrous midterms, but if they don't, yeah, okay. Well, that will change my opinion on things.
But again, it's.
I mean, I am worried that so many Americans don't seem to be concerned that the Democrats will fortify the midterms just like they did the presidential election. I am concerned about that, but apparently most Americans don't think that's an issue for some reason.
I think it's a moot point, Duke, because I mean the idea that the Republicans are some sort of
listen. Look, the Republicans, the mainstream American Republicans, are just as bad as the British Conservatives. Yes, of course they are. I know that.
Joe Boo, the answer is yes. Yeah, you're right, Duke. They're just as bad.
Yeah,
if not even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not disputing that for 1 second. But all I'm saying is, I think that the Democrats should have, because America's not doing so well internally, despite what some of you guys have been saying today. Internally, it's not doing so well for average middle class and working class people. It should be that the Democrats will have a disastrous midterms. Now, following that, who knows who's going to run? I don't know. Will it be Trump? Will it be DeSantis?
I'm glad Mitt Romney's mates will get a stab at it.
Maybe.
Just, if you genuinely believe that they're just as bad as each other, then it doesn't matter which one's in. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well,
which
okay. So we're coming around to AI's ideas.
Don the pleb is right. Do what you can to live on your own devices and by your own means, and just forget the rest of the world. Let it all burn to the ground.
He's totally right, and you can maybe even do that in America. I don't think you'll get away with it in the UK very easily, but yeah. I do think that Spindley is right. No savior is going to come from the Republican or Conservative Party. I do agree with that.
For sure.
It's got to be someone outside of those parties.
If you're talking about saviors, I'd recommend Jesus Christ. But other than that, I think you're out.
Yeah, well, okay. I have no problem with Jesus. I don't personally totally believe, but I've got no problem with Jesus. Fine, if that's your savior, go for it. But I'm talking about in terms of nation states. So yeah. All right, guys, we've been going for getting on for 2 hours. Final points. Mitch, you haven't said anything for ages.
I can't. I mean, aside from like what we talked about in terms of whether America is as being as hegemonic as it has been in the past, or is Britain worth it at this point? I mean, I can't really talk about that because I mean, I'm a guy who's learning Russian at the moment with idea of moving to Russia because things are so bad here. Guys, the way things are going with Russia, I mean, I would not put it past it if like Russia ends up bloody going for another 1991. If
I was a young man, I would also consider what you're thinking about there, Mitch. I've got to say.
So
going to Russia.
Yeah. If I was a young man, yes, I might.
There's one big glaring problem in that plan. So you're a Westerner. So, like, I think the idea that you think that the Russians are going to accept a Westerner with open arms is like wishful thinking.
I know quite a few Westerners who have moved there who seem to be doing fine. But okay.
I know they're not going to feel the heat. I mean, think about it from the Russian point of view. You got some UK person, American person living in Russia.
How many UK or Australian people in Russia do you follow, Richard?
Well, I don't follow any. I'm saying.
Well, I follow quite a few, and they seem to be doing fine.
Well, but for how long? I would just, for me, that's a bit of a red flag.
Why are they doing all right now then? I mean, like this week.
Well, what about the old the YouTuber Bald and Bankrupt? I mean, what did he do to?
Oh, what he did was raise money for Ukraine.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Okay. I actually didn't know that.
Nor did I until Mitch put a video up on. Actually, I'm not even sure it was Mitch. I put a video up on our Discord which explained it. That is why he got chucked out of Russia. He was raising money for Ukraine. And
I still stand by my point though, because I also put in your chat the video from the European Union, which is basically very unfavourable to Russian nationals travelling to the EU. And
Yeah,
I
I've seen that. I've seen
can
that. But why
expect
the
the
fuck do you
same-
want to go there?
But it's the diplomatic principle of reciprocation, right? So I'm just saying that although the idea of moving to Russia, you might think that's based, but maybe they're going to look at you differently. That would be my only concern,
I
basically.
haven't seen that from any of the British or Australian people I follow in Russia, including last week.
Cool. Well, then that's good news. But I don't know. Keep an eye on it, and if that does change, drop something in the chat, because that would be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I know. So I knew this like one Cascadian boomer on Telegram who actually moved to Russia. Like he got a cheap flight from like Portland, I think it was, or somewhere in America, all the way to New Delhi, and we got a cheap flight from there to Moscow, and he's living in Moscow at the moment because he was spending the last year learning Russian or something like that. So now he's living there, and from what I've heard of him, he seems to be getting on all right as an American. So
I'm surprised. If that's the way the Russians are treating them, that's well, good for them then, I guess.
yeah, I've seen on Russian Telegram, you get some of these Russian Telegram guys will say, okay, one thing Russia should do is do tax cuts for Westerners who want to go to Russia. Now, this isn't like official policy or anything. This is just opinion of a few channels. So you get some channels who will say, okay, given that the West is pretty much the way it is in terms of how gay it is and whatever, let's turn one of our oblasts, like Kaliningrad Oblast or whatever, into pretty much like a refuge for Westerners who hate the West or something. I would actually laugh about if they were willing to let Kaliningrad be renamed Königsberg so they could attract all those like AfD types in Germany.
I would also mention that Russia was the only country, as far as I know, who was who allowed white South Africans, particularly Afrikaners, to come and sell in Russia, and a fair number of them did actually, and they seem to be going on fine.
Well, I stand corrected.
So yeah, I don't think most average Russians have a particular hatred for Western people. In fact, I don't think most average Brits have a particular hatred for Russians. I think it's
The ones I worked with,
it's an elite thing.
the ones I've worked with were perfectly lovely. Didn't have a problem with them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, the Russians I knew at uni they were perfectly all right. They ranged from like the problem with them though was because the Russians that you get in the West are either they range from like normies to
No,
like
I'm
full-on
talking about
shitheads.
Russians that live in Russia.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Russians over here.
No, I worked for an international company. I worked with people that lived in Poland, Ukraine, Russia, Asia, all over the world, and the Russians are absolutely fine. Never had a problem with them.
Yeah, I've known a few Russians, never had a problem with them at all.
Very, very short and to the point, and don't beat around the bush, which is why I think England would naturally get on quite well with Russia if it wasn't for the politicians.
Yep, totally agree,
Yeah.
John. Totally
Yeah,
agree.
I agree with that because I mean I used to be bad for that before I met like Russians and Germans I knew at uni, like in terms of like talking for a long time and saying nothing, and then I just become a lot more direct with what I say. I just drowned on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I said, I've known a few Russians over the years, and not bad people as far as I'm aware. And like I said, there is no real reason for Britain, which is a maritime nation, to have any sort of bad deal with Russia, which is a land nation.
I've heard about. I mean, Russia's not traditional like a maritime nation, so it doesn't really apply. But I mean, I've heard apparently Russia wants to like have more naval bases or something because they've got a naval base in Syria, and we're wanting to expand their navy in the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea.
Fine.
But I mean,
I don't care. I mean, like I said, I don't see a reason for Britain and Russia to be enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite Russophilic, but then again, I'm also Germanophilic as well. So
See, I'm not very Germanophilic, to be honest, but
I thought you liked the Anglo-Saxons.
I like the Anglo-Saxons, who are a Germanic people, but of course I like the Anglo-Saxons because I'm an Anglo-Saxon. But I'm not particularly Germanophilic from the mid 20th century, shall we say? But yeah, look, I don't see a particular reason.
I remember I used to minister to an elderly lady in my church, and immediately after the war, she got married to a German. She was English, she was German, and for years they kind of tried to do their best to hide that fact from people because of how looked down upon they would have been for it. But yeah.
Jovi says Russians are better cricketers than the English. Bollocks, Jovi.
Are there any English people in the English cricket team anymore?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I think many of the sports other than football have escaped relatively unscathed.
Yeah, there's a lot of Indians.
Running's not a good place.
But yeah, all right, Richard, your final thoughts, man.
I don't really have any. We'll see what happens with the Italian election and how long the Italian government actually lasts.
That's always a good question.
But other than that, I don't know. We just have to see. I'm just focused on the energy situation and the economic fallout that's obviously coming.
Jobu says Gladstone Small was as English as crumpets and tea. No, he wasn't, but anyway. But yeah, look, I don't disagree with you, Richard. I think the wait and see thing is very wise, particularly over this winter. And I would strongly advise people, don't go on what's going to happen in the first month or so of winter. See what's happening in the spring, because that's going to be what's really telling and when anything's going to be running out. Any of you chaps have anything you would like to shill?
I didn't go for final thoughts.
Yeah, go for final thoughts then, John,
Right.
please.
Love me country, love me king, not leaving. I'll embrace English to Kai if I have to.
English what?
To Kaya. We were talking about Muslims earlier.
Oh, fuck me.
English to Kia, yeah.
Yeah, I'll never do that. But yeah, the rest of it I totally agree with, but not
The
that.
English conversion.
Apart from not leaving, because you did that.
Fine, and that's a choice one can make. I tell you what, if you do leave, you miss some of it. You do. You miss the countryside. you miss the historic buildings. You miss the coast. All of that is very true. You do.
I miss the beer. The beer's fucking shit here.
Yeah. Well, I don't drink much beer these days, but when I used to, I probably would have missed that too. But yeah, there are things you miss when you leave it for sure, and sometimes you miss it quite badly, like particularly like the countryside and the lovely old little villages and stuff. But that is smaller and smaller bits of the place. Is the trouble. But yeah, but I don't miss the government, and I don't miss London, and I don't miss the diversity at all. In fact, I even moved in Australia to ditch diversity, so yeah. But eventually there's nowhere left to run to, so there's that too. Final thoughts, Richard?
You already asked me.
Mitch?
I've already gave my last thoughts.
Yeah, it was just me. Don't worry.
Right. Sorry, I thought I had asked you too, John. Sorry.
It's all right.
Does anyone have anything they want to show?
People are welcome to go watch the Wellington Project channel if they like.
All right, I'll stick that in the description later on, John. Probably after I've had a sleep, but I'll stick it in.
No.
Anybody else?
No, I don't create any content, so I therefore don't have anything to show.
No
Yes.
worries, Mick.
Yeah,
That's
so
you're never going to change the world with that attitude, Richard.
I know.
Richard doesn't want to change the world. He just wants to watch it burn. But yeah, I'm sorry, that's probably not fair. But yeah, all right. Okay, guys, I do have a couple of things to show. Some of you will have noticed we didn't do the third stream in our British foreign defence policy 1942 thing with Horace on Thursday. That was because I couldn't get hold of Horace. Sorry about that. We're going to do it next week. Thursday starting 8 p.m., I believe. 8 p.m. UK time, which is 5 a.m. Eastern Australian time. My God, I'm going to have to get up early again. But there we go. On top of that, we have a stream coming up about the pros and cons of leaving UK for young British men. We're going to be talking about that. I hope we can get Richard on for that because he's done it. And maybe John as well, and even Mitch, because he's thinking about it. So all of that will be good. And I think that's all of it. And next week, our Splendid Isolation stream 91, our central topic is going to be Ulster and Northern Ireland. And I hope I can get a few Ulster and Northern Ireland guys to come on the stream to talk about it. So that's going to be next week. So look out for all those. Please subscribe.
On that subject, have you seen that there are now more Catholics in Northern Ireland than Protestants?
The very reason we're doing the stream, John.
Okay.
Yes. Although that is according to the selectively released census data, isn't it?
You're not suggesting it's been manipulated, are you? I don't think they need to.
I think it might be a bit con, but yeah. I don't trust the British government at all these days. Not even a little tiny bit. But yeah. Anyway, please remember, chaps and ladies, if there are any in the chat, do subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any new content. Like the stream because that helps us. And we'll see you next week. But before we go, I'm going to play us out with the tune. Okay, that was On the Quarterdeck, which is a British tune about the Battle of Jutland, and the young boy in the photograph was Boy Cornwall, who, when his gun crew were all killed, he was badly wounded. He was about 14 years old. He stood by and served his gun on his own until he died from blood loss, and deservedly got the Victoria Cross. I think he's one of the youngest winners of the Victoria Cross, and he was a young Royal Navy sailor. So anyway, that's us for this week. Do subscribe to the channel, like the stream if you liked it, and we'll see you next week. Go all, people.